Now that Persona 5 Royal has been out for a few weeks, I thought it would be a good idea to do a guide explaining how to tackle the new super boss, Lavenza. You may be thinking, is a guide even necessary for a Persona boss? And normally I'd say no, not really. But Lavenza is a special case, as without special planning and preparation, you will quickly find yourself up against a wall. At the same time, this also serves as a good way to sort of show my thought process when approaching how I decide which abilities to keep and which to get rid of on my party members in Persona. So with that out of the way, let's talk about how to beat Lavenza. Before we get into the video, I do just want to remind you that I stream most days over on Twitch at twitch.tv/RosalindGaming. I've also done a lot of videos covering Persona 5 Royal and its systems and changes, so if you're interested in any of that, I will leave a link to the playlist in the video description below. First and foremost, in order to actually fight Lavenza, you must be on New Game Plus and in the 3rd semester. You must also have already secured a route to the treasure in the game's final palace. After that, you can find her outside of the Velvet Room in Mementos, much like with the twins. It should be noted, however, that you do not need to have beat the twins to fight Lavenza. And finally, the strategy and party setup that I used isn't necessarily the only thing that's viable, it's just what worked for me. You may find a setup that works better for you. Lavenza is a unique fight in that she has 4 rather distinct phases and a number of gimmicks for each phase. Before I talk about the party and persona I chose to use for this fight, I think it would be best to give a quick rundown on each phase of the fight. At the beginning of the fight, Lavenza will remove any buffs you have on your party members as a preemptive attack. She will also continue to remove buffs from your party members periodically throughout the fight, as well as debuffs on herself. She will also switch her active persona every turn throughout the fight, but this is only really important for the first phase, as she is resistant to all forms of damage except Almighty and either electric, ice, wind, or fire depending on her active persona. The reason this is important is because the primary gimmick for phase 1 is that you must deal 5,000 damage to her before she completes 2 full rotations of the 4 personas she uses in this phase, or roughly 9 turns. If you fail to do so, she will automatically end the fight with her all-out attack. In phase 2, Lavenza will again rotate between different persona, but unlike phase 1, this isn't really all that important. What is important is that Lavenza will now be susceptible to status ailments for this phase, and this plays into the phase's gimmick. Much like with phase 1, you must deal 5,000 damage in 9 turns or Lavenza will end the fight immediately. However, you must also deal technical damage every turn. As with the rest of the fight, Lavenza will rotate between different persona in phase 3. But just as with phase 2, this isn't really all that important. What's important again is the gimmick. The deal 5,000 damage in 9 turns or fail bit is still here for phase 3. However, instead of dealing technical damage every turn, you must now deal critical damage every turn. Yes, that's right. If you fail to deal a critical blow to Lavenza for even 1 turn during phase 3, she will end the fight immediately. And finally, phase 4. This last phase will see you dealing the remainder of Lavenza's HP and damage, but unlike everything up to this point, there is no real gimmick. Her damage will ramp up though as she starts to use charge and concentrate, as well as counterattacking your party members. The one thing you really need to watch out for though is a big almighty attack she uses every 6 turns in conjunction with concentrate. You will want to have buffs up on your party, debuffs up on Lavenza, and you may even want to guard as well. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward phase. Now that we have an idea of what we need to deal with, let me go over the party I used and why I used who I did. And to start things off, Makoto. It should come as no surprise that I chose to use her because as with much of the rest of the game, she is fantastic here as well. Specifically, I had her set up to be a support healer. To that end, I taught her Spellmaster from the Jazz Club to help with SP management, and I gave her the Will Seed accessory from Shido's Palace so she could cast Charge on Kasumi. Throughout most phases, her role is to keep the party topped off with her healing abilities and to help maintain Charge on Kasumi. In phase 2, she has the important role of being 1/2 of my technical damage setup by casting Maka Jam on Lavenza. Next up is Haru, who fills out the second half of my support team. She has 3 primary roles for the fight. Keep Debilitate up on Lavenza, help maintain charge on Kasumi, and deal technical damage to Lavenza in phase 2. To this end, I made sure to teach her Debilitate at the Jazz Club as well as Spellmaster to assist with SP management. I also gave her my second Will Seed accessory from Shido's Palace, so she would have access to charge. In hindsight, I should have also given her one-shot kill, but I had removed it from her as I primarily use her as a support character throughout my playthroughs of Persona 5 Royal. To fill out the last party member slot, I chose to use Kasumi, and the primary reason for this is her ability to reliably deal critical hits. Critical hits bypass Lavenza's resistances in phase 1, and allow me to baton past Joker for increased damage. She also provides a critical hit rate up buff to the entire party in the form of Brave Step, which combines nicely with her already incredibly high critical hit rate. Because she can potentially die easily in Phase 2 if Lavenza uses an instant death curse attack, I gave her the Will Seed accessory from Madarame's palace to remove her weakness to curse. Now before we move on to Joker, I did just want to mention that I made sure to keep each character's evade skill that they learned during their second awakening as I was playing on Merciless. For Joker, I prepared 4 persona. First is Addis, who I brought so that I could cast his AoE Heat Riser ability that I can't pronounce. Though because of how often Lavenza dispels buffs in the party, this was more for when I could fit it in and not really a priority. Next was Maria. I brought her to do some off healing whenever I needed to cast Charge on Kasumi or Debilitate on Lavenza but also needed to heal as well. A quick note about Maria, Holy Embrace and Holy Whisper don't do what they say they do in the Western version of Persona 5 Royal, unless they've patched it. Holy Embrace heals you for 25% of your max HP every turn, and Holy Whisper heals you for 15% of your max HP every turn, as well as 15 SP. Now for the 2 main damage dealers, Shiva and Satanael. Shiva I set up for scoring critical hits and gun damage, primarily for Phase 3, whereas Satanael is set up to maximize his damage with Black Viper. I gave him Almighty Boost and Amp, both of which I got from Network Fusion. When combined with Tyrant's Mind, this gave him 100% increased damage with Black Viper. Because these boosts can't go past 100%, I passed down Lucifer's Persona trait for 75% reduced SP costs on spells. With this party setup, the general flow of battle went something like this. I would heal Makoto when needed, and maintain Debilitate on Lavenza with Haru. Whoever was open for the turn would cast Charge on Kasumi. I would use Concentrate with Joker, and if he already had that, I would either have him help with healing or buff with Addis. Kasumi would cast Sword Dance, and assuming it critically hit, I would opt not to use an all-out attack, as the damage for all-out attacks on Hard and Merciless do next to nothing. Instead, I would baton pass to Joker for the increased damage and use Black Viper, repeating this until Phase 1 ended. For Phase 2, Makoto would switch to using Maka Jam every turn, and Haru would follow up with Cyodyne in order to deal technical damage. Because my technical rank was rank 4, this would down Lavenza, and I would then baton pass to Joker to use Black Viper. As for Kasumi in this phase, I would actually have her use Star Dragon Onions on Joker to give him Concentrate. I would also keep track of how much damage I was dealing so that I could have Kasumi cast Brave Step just before heading into Phase 3. Phase 3 is the quickest phase as you will either breeze through it or lose to RNG. With Brave Step up, I was able to use Charge on Joker, Sword Dance for a critical hit with Kasumi, into a baton pass to Joker, who then used one-shot kill to end the phase. And for the final phase, it was back to doing what I did for Phase 1. So that about does it for my guide to the Lavenza boss fight in Persona 5 Royal. Hopefully this was helpful so that you can either use the same strategy I did, or formulate your own strategy to take her down. Oh, and in case you were wondering what you get for taking her down, the main reward is an accessory that nullifies all magic damage except Almighty for the equipped character. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section below. Alternatively, you can catch me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/RoslinGaming, where I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Until next time, take care.